by Anthea Allen. Anthea is a senior critical care sister. She kept a record of life on the front lines during the pandemic. She had an amazing blog, and it's all gone into this book. It's called Life, Death and Biscuits, which is a great title. This is an extraordinary piece of work. I've heard you talking on radio programmes about your experiences during the pandemic, and I just had to stop what I was doing, because the detail that you go into and the stories that you tell in the book are jaw-dropping. But I want to ask you just to recount, for people watching, the one that almost melted my heart. It's such a tender moment. You said that after a particularly incredibly busy period, there was a slight lull, and you walked into one of the rooms on your ward, and there were 4 nurses doing what to that lady lying in bed with her hair?
Oh, that was a patient we had with really long hair, and she'd been sick with COVID for weeks, I think.
Nearly died.
Yes, she did, and very sick. And we were getting to a point where people were beginning to recover, and we had a little bit more time to do all the little things that intensive care nurses do. And I went in, and there were 4 nurses standing at the head of the bed with the Tangle Teaser brushes and conditioner just combing this lady's long hair. There were 4 of them.
Because it was full of blood and vomit and liquid food.
Sticky feed, drugs. And when we prone patients, they're face down, they sort of dribble, and they get a lot of muck in their hair, and we didn't have any time to tend to people's hair, so it was quite matted. So they were doing an amazing job, and I could just see all these streams of hair. And
conditioning it.
Yeah.
And by the time they'd finished, it was just
beautiful,
glowing, glossy and beautiful.
Really beautiful. Washed, blow-dried, combed, conditioned.
And those bits of nursing, it's clear in the book, can be just as important as knowing how to use a ventilator.
Yeah, they're the little things that make such a difference.
Anthea, I came to know you because you are one of the sisters at my local hospital, and I was put on your email round robin, and I just think 2 years ago, as you know, this week we're talking about the lifting of restrictions, but it is easy to forget in the absolute thick of it, when it was all beginning and you were becoming snowed under with the number of patients coming in and the desperation, the trying to get ventilators, even trying to get treatment for patients, you know, the days before vaccines and proper treatments, just how desperate it was for you all, how hard it was. And I remember reading those emails as if they were missives from a war correspondent
good analogy.
At the front line of a conflict.
Well, that's how it felt. We were at war, in the trenches, without the rats, luckily.
And being at war, you have to deal with death. And your job is to save life. And it's a victory every time you do. But you had to face defeats again and again and again. What's that like, to have somebody that you may have become very fond of die in front of you?
Well, I mean, it's part of critical care nursing. It's something that happens all the time, but because it was happening so regularly, it was really tough for the staff, for all of us. It was very tough. And I remember one day when we had a number of deaths and the speed at which people were dying, and then you were needing to make space for another patient to come in. So it was that person's dead, move them over, we're on the next patient, and that's really hard. And particularly because people didn't have any visitors, so their family weren't with them. So it just felt really crude and harsh. It's not how we're used to working.
And also, of course, because of the sheer number of patients, you would normally give one-to-one care, wouldn't you?
One-to-one, or sometimes we might have 2 patients, depending on their needs.
But at the beginning, when you were just being deluged with patients, you'd be presumably juggling huge numbers. And
we'd have 1 critical care nurse to 3, 4, 5 patients with a helper from somewhere else who was often a nurse, but may work in another department or have no knowledge of any critical care at all.
And as you mentioned, because people weren't allowed visitors, you had that extra responsibility, didn't you,
Well, we became their family, I think.
And what was that like for them? Did they sort of cling to you in a way that they wouldn't have done if their family had been allowed in?
Sometimes, but often the patients were so sick, they were sedated or unconscious, ventilated. So, I mean, thankfully not really aware of what was happening. But if they were awake or with it, or some patients initially at the beginning, if you would intubate them, they would be very frightened. I always notice when you squeeze a patient's hand in those situations, they always squeeze back. They will always, whoever they are.
Yes. And in the absence of family, and close friends, artefacts, objects, personal possessions become very important.
If we had them,
If you could get them, like bags, for example, favourite bags.
Yeah, well, in normal times, you might do those little things when someone's at the end of their life, but COVID, you couldn't. There wasn't anything. And we had no family, so family couldn't bring things. Every now and again, somebody would drop something in the hospital that might make their way up, but not very often.
But the technical pressures on you were huge. I mean, you say in the book that a lot of people don't realise this, but quite a lot of senior doctors and consultants don't know how to work a ventilator.
Well, it depends the area. Yes, we're trained to do that. And obviously, those senior people who work on intensive care, anaesthetists, respiratory doctors do, of course, and they would programme the ventilator, but it's the nurses who care for them. But I was working with urologists and orthopaedic surgeons and someone from a sexual health clinic. They have no need in their day-to-day life to know how a ventilator operates.
And on a day when you did lose lots of patients, you know, despite your best efforts, you must have gone home absolutely drained to the core.
Yes. We did a lot of crying, but we had each other. That was what the amazing thing was. The nurses as a team just bonded together. It was incredible.
The nurse, you went in and she was bleeding.
Oh, yeah. She's a young nurse that I knew well and got on well with, and that was just something quite harsh, that she's working, she has her period, she's just getting on with it. She didn't have time to go to the toilet. I don't think she realised this had happened. And I went in and we're suddenly in the bathroom. I'm changing her scrubs, handing her wet cloths to wash with, disposable knickers that I got out of the linen cupboard, and it was just what it was. And my concern there was she was feeling undignified, and I just said, look, no one, and still to this day, no one knows who that was, and I would never say to anyone. And we just dealt with it. I gave her a hug and we moved on, and every now and again it comes up now, but in a jokey way when I'm with her, but it was OK. It really was OK.
One of the reasons it's called Life, Death and Biscuits is because you revealed, and this was one of the insights that I think we were all surprised by, you didn't even have time to go and get something to eat. I remember that you said that somebody had been refused service in a local shop because they were wearing their scrubs.
In the hospital shops, yeah.
Yeah. And,
in the hospital shop?
Yes. I think everyone was scared, I think.
Staff couldn't get a hot meal. I mean, just working round the clock.
Yeah.
And there was a campaign launched to bring you food, basically, wasn't there?
Well, it all happened by accident, really. I just wrote emails seeing if somebody could make some brownies or drop some biscuits at the hospital, because if you put biscuits or chocolates in front of nurses, it's just gone. And I just thought, what can I do? What can I do? These are youngsters. They come, a lot of them from Ireland, Europe, from all over the world. They don't have their family. English is often their second language. And part of my role is the recruitment, so I get to know the nurses, particularly the younger ones, really well. And I just thought we could get a few biscuits from some of the local people who are really good cooks, and I got an incredible amount.
You were obviously highly experienced before this happened, before the pandemic kicked in. But this, for you, must have been a life-changing experience. I mean, when I got to the end of this book, I thought, well, you cannot be the same person today that you were 2.5 years ago. You can't be.
No.
How's it changed you, do you think, this?
It's increased my empathy a lot. And it's just made me feel that life's short, people are important, family's important, friends are important, your work colleagues are important, and being able to love is important. And the British stiff upper lip, we mustn't show how we feel. I have lost all of that. If I want to hug someone or kiss them or tell them I love them or be with them...
You're going to damn well do it.
Absolutely, I will. And I do. And I just think that people are really important, and that's what we really need to remember.
And when that campaign was launched for the food, what did you notice in the list of contributions to PayPal? It was quite a large one, wasn't there? That you thought was a prank when you first saw it.
There were lots of very big donations from various
one
people.
From Sir Richard Branson.
Yes.
How much did he give to the campaign?
I don't know, actually. I really genuinely don't know.
I think it was thousands of pounds, wasn't it?
Yeah. So we had a lot of amazing donations. Yeah. It was quite shocking.
Well, Anthea, it's good to see you, and thank you for your incredible work during the pandemic. Dr. Hilary, I mean, it's just a painful reminder, really, isn't it, of of what you all went through, you know, and what they went through in intensive care was probably the toughest.
I have nothing but admiration and praise for Anthea and the book. Everyone should read the book, and maybe people will understand how difficult it is to realise why critical care workers and colleagues like her have been subject to abuse and antagonism at the same time as doing heroic work like they've been carrying out. Absolutely fantastic. So well done, Anthea. Yeah. Brilliant.
Well, we know why you long ago earned the sobriquet Angels, because that's how you come across.
Yeah.
Angels. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you.